today.
I love listening to 5 Live because of the variety of opinions that I get to hear.
It really does keep me up to date.
The voice of the UK. Nihal Athanayake. BBC Radio 5 Live.
And a very good afternoon to you. What will we do in an hour's time? Anyway, now, it might be this. If you want to be successful in a career in tech, then young women must be resilient. That's according to the CEO of the dating app Bumble, Lydianne Jones. Now, talking exclusively to the BBC, she acknowledged that the path to success in technology for women is often riddled with hurdles, not least of those being the real lack of female representation, and says women need to use that resilience to their advantage.
Use this resilience that we have to build, especially as women, because opportunities are harder. It's still not an equitable journey for women today. Use that set of resilience to your advantage, because it means we are more creative, we're more resourceful, we're more versatile in looking for opportunities.
Now, Dulcie Swanston is an author and a coach that works with executives in tech and other industries. Dulcie, good afternoon.
Hi.
It's lovely to have you on the show. Now, what does resilience mean for a woman that is different than the resilience a man needs to progress in their career?
Well, the definition of resilience is the same for anyone,
sure.
regardless of men or women. So there's lots of definitions of it. But most people recognise resilience as your ability to bounce back when things go wrong, because in our workplaces, in our lives, things are usually not plain sailing. Bad things will happen to great people, competent people. But it's your ability to use that to your advantage, bounce back and to learn from it that really marks people out as being resilient. And kind of that's the message that I think that Lydianne was talking to us about, really.
What about the lack of female representation when you walk into a room and you're the only woman in that room, and there may be 5 or 6 men in there, and trying to get them to understand where you're coming from? How important is it to have increased representation in that?
Yeah, well, it's hugely important, because actually there's things like imposter thinking. I don't call it imposter syndrome, but a lot of your listeners will have heard of that, and that can be triggered by you feeling as though you're in a minority, where and if you're the only woman in a room full of men, you're more likely to kind of trigger that response. And the thing is that you're not telling yourself the truth when that happens. Actually, when you trigger that kind of sense of being an imposter, or it makes you feel as though you shouldn't be there, perhaps because you don't see anybody else like you in those environments, it's not actually real. But your brain kind of tells you that it's real because you don't see anyone like you. So I think what you need to do is to kind of grow your understanding of things like that, so that you don't allow yourself to get in your own way. And I think this is this thing about being resilient. Resilience is intrinsic. It's not about other people telling you can do it. It's about you believing that you can do it, believing in yourself, and being convinced that you will carry on being yourself, even if people around you are a bit different to you. And I think Lydianne was absolutely right that, because you've had to build that resilience in as a woman in a male-dominated environment. That's where I did a lot of my growing up, not in tech, but I worked in pubs back when I joined a business. That was my first experience of the world of work. And it was quite unusual to be a woman in that environment. But I've got to say that most of my male colleagues that I was worked with caught on really quickly that actually I'd got something really valuable to bring. I was, resourceful and creative, as Lydianne was saying that women need to be in order to succeed. So I think once women show the competence they bring to the table, they show the contribution they can make, then actually great people want to recruit great people, whether they're men or women. And, a diverse board these days, and particularly where you've got the CEO or you've got people in key roles like decision-making roles like finance, are women, the financial performance in those organisations is better. So you can't argue that it makes sense, but it can be really difficult to still be that solo voice, that solo person around the table, and you have to believe in yourself.
But what is the long-term ramifications, do you think, of that sense of isolation, being in male-dominated environments?
Well, you would hope you wouldn't be isolated for very long, right? Because actually, you grow your own people, don't you? So actually, you start to remove barriers if you're the sort of person who, regards talent and looks for talent wherever you go. And I think women kind of get that it can be more difficult for women. So the best female leaders I know just kind of blow the excuses and the reasons why people might not make a brilliant woman their first choice in a role. They just kind of remove the obstacles, they remove the objections, because human beings aren't, we're kind of wired to be a bit suspicious of people who aren't like us. This is not people being bad. This is kind of normal human behaviour. So actually, if you've never worked with a woman in a senior environment, and you're a guy and you've only ever worked in a room full of guys, it wouldn't be unusual for your brain to be going, oh, I'm not sure. And therefore, we need adult-to-adult conversations about that. It's no point hiding away from unconscious bias and pretending that you don't have it, because the clue's in the title. Everybody has unconscious bias. So it's about women performing in the job, encouraging the people around them to give other people a chance, and actually, being resilient enough to handle the knocks that inevitably will come with that, because, people will have got used to a way of working. You might call things out that just aren't appropriate, that nobody's noticed before, or, it just hasn't been called out. You've got to be prepared to stand up for yourself. You've got to be prepared to navigate that. And that requires a really high level of self-control and self-awareness. So these are all the kind of qualities that you need in order to be resilient enough to basically pave the way for other people to come behind you.
What about showing emotion in the workplace? I mean, one of the cliches is that in order to get on, you have to adopt the same characteristics that you may see in male colleagues. Is that true? And are there such thing as male and female characteristics after all? I mean, why gender characteristics?
Yeah. Do you know what? We could digress on the science into this because it's fascinating. But quite often, the same characteristics can be seen differently. So you can exhibit the same characteristic as a woman as a man. If you observed it as an AI, you'd see the same thing, but it is perceived as different when it is expressed by a woman or expressed by a man. My advice to people is no, don't conform. Be yourself. Be adaptable. By all means, you've got to learn to work with people rather than just in opposition. But actually, a lot of the qualities that women bring because they've had to do it the hard way, like this resourceful thinking that Lydiane was talking about, just this ability to kind of go, right, if I can't go straight on, I'm going to go left, I'm going to go right, I'm going to move round. These are kind of new qualities that you learn because the direct route sometimes wasn't available to you because, you were a different gender, you had different opportunities, there just weren't the role models when you were growing up. So no, I'm a really big believer in be yourself. Don't be like everybody else, but just learn to kind of adapt and take people with you.
Adapt and take people with you. Are you hopeful that change is definitely happening?
Yeah, not as quickly as I'd like. Obviously, I'm a woman. I've got 4 daughters, but it's nowhere near as difficult to navigate as it used to be. And I think part of that is you just can't get away from the evidence. So I'm hugely evidence-based in my work. I'm always looking for what's the research say. And the research is there's just no doubt that well-balanced executives that have women in key decision-making roles just perform better. Like, they make more sales and profit. So I think because you can't argue with the data, people will look harder for their female talent. Once the female talent is in place, they then provide the platform for other women to follow them, because you can see somebody who looks and sounds like you. You can see somebody who behaves in a different way and still gets results. And, I love Jacinta Ardern's comment that, she absolutely I won't quite quote her right, but she says that she refuses to believe that she cannot be warm and strong. She's just not having it. And I think that's a great message to send out to women, that actually your warmth and your strength together quite often are your superpower. So you certainly shouldn't put one of those superpowers on hold, particularly because lots of research says that empathy is one of the, if not the leading quality that leaders need to have. And there is stacks of research out there that says emotional intelligence is the kind of number one quality that people need to develop in order to perform well at work. So, to deliver physical results.
Mm-hmm. I just want to read out this text and get your take on it, right? So this text has just come in from an anonymous female listener. Resilience as a woman in a senior role. You will never be part of the boys' drinking club. You will never be part of the boys' golf club. You're dealing with men who are usually 50 plus and who grew up in an era when it was legal for women to be discriminated against. Think that women couldn't join the RAF in the technical apprenticeship because it was male only and only a third of air cadet units were allowed to be female. People will look at you and wonder if you're in your position to tick a diversity box or if you're actually good at your job. You will not be included in all the jokes and banter because you're a woman. Some people will be uncomfortable receiving genuine corporate hospitality from you because my wife wouldn't be happy that I'm out drinking with you. I feel that things are changing slowly, but I'm exhausted from the constant battle against it all. I love my job though and won't leave it, and have battled to be there and will continue to try to be the best I can, but I'm happy to be good at my job. I work with some amazing men. I hope that as this generation of men age out of the workforce, things will over time become better and easier for women to be respected in senior roles. And the need for resilience will reduce, and the energy that resilience takes can be used for ambition instead. I can't come on, unfortunately. Please don't use my name, as it would be really obvious to anyone I work with. Thanks for raising this. What are your thoughts on that?
Brilliant. What a wise woman. And I'm sure anybody listening to that would want her round that senior table, right? Balanced, realistic, but absolutely passionate and committed to the future being different. Maybe the only difference I've experienced personally is that I've had some really good older male allies. I've been really lucky with some of the male mentors that I've had during my career. I've had some men who have really pulled me up and actually have helped me as much with my sense of being an imposter as some of my female colleagues. So I completely respect what she has to say. I think she expresses the challenge, which is very practical, really well. But I think we shouldn't overgeneralize that actually. Men of a certain age, all feel that way. My husband is in his 50s. He's a male leader, and he's really well known for bringing talented women through the business. And he's got 4 daughters, so it's not always the case that actually it's a them and us. I think give people the opportunity to change their minds as well. Just because someone used to think that way, change for them will be really hard. Yeah. So, actually not making decisions down the golf club because not everybody plays golf will feel weird. It might take time, and change is really difficult for people. So actually give them the ability to change and accept that they might come round, but it might take some time.
Indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Dulcie Swanston there, author and a coach that works with executives in tech and other industries. So we are going to do something different for the phone in